there's something almost universal about the human experience. From a very young age, we try to experience this thing called freedom, right? We all want freedom. We want freedom, and especially in the United States, like our country is founded on this idea of freedom. It's why so many people want to live here. I started doing some research on the statistics of people who immigrate to the United States and other countries. I mean, it is so far beyond any other country that we have people immigrating here. I mean, it's crazy. And I think there's a lot of reasons why, but one of them is this foundation of freedom. And America's foundation as it relates to freedom is built on a few key ideas, and some are deeply biblically influenced. Number one, freedom is a God-given right, not a government-given right. Freedom is a God-given right. That matters because it means government doesn't grant us freedom. It's supposed to protect our freedom. Number two is freedom is tied to human dignity. The founders believed that freedom is connected to the value of the human person created in the image of God. Number three, freedom requires limits on power, right? The American system was designed around checks and balances so that nothing got out of hand, that there was a separation of powers and rule of law. The goal wasn't just democracy, it was preventing tyranny. Freedom is inseparable from responsibility and virtue. Early Americans didn't treat freedom as do whatever you want. It's the ability to do what's right without being controlled by unjust authority. Number five, freedom of conscience and worship. Religious freedom wasn't tolerated, it was a conviction. Number six, freedom expressed through self-government. In other words, we get a say. And I don't know about you, but I love being free. I love the freedom that I have. I want freedom. I don't want anybody micromanaging me. I don't want people telling me what to do at all hours of the day. How about you? Are you in a place where you love freedom? And maybe this idea of we get a say resonates. It's like, listen, I can do what I'm asked to do, or I can do my role or my responsibility, or I understand in a family that this is my function, but I want to say. No matter what you believe when it comes to government or faith or family, we all understand this idea of we get a say. There are other freedoms that deep down we want as well. For some of us, it's freedom from habits that we just can't seem to break. Anybody there? I just need to be free from this habit that I can't seem to break. Or freedom from patterns that we keep repeating. Right? Like after church, don't go to the donut shop. I just have this habit, right? Freedom from addiction and the version of ourselves that we don't like anymore. God, I don't want to do this. We were talking in our huddle this morning, and there's this verse that talks about, man, what I don't want to do, I do. But what I do want to do, man, I struggle because I'm over here doing what I don't want to do. And I've never read a verse that I identify more with in my life. It's like this struggle that we feel sometimes, and at the end of it, we want to say, others want freedom from anger, or you want freedom from anxiety. You might get free for a bit, but you find yourself drifting to a place without freedom again. And here's the deal. It doesn't matter if you're a follower of Jesus or not. We can all understand and identify with this idea of wanting to be really free. And the question starts creeping in. Why can't I change? Why can't I change? I thought it was over. Why does this keep coming back? And deep down, we're not just frustrated with what we do. We're frustrated with who we are and who we've become. We don't want just behavior modification. We want transformation. But change sometimes seems unattainable and unrealistic. I've lived this. Maybe you have too. There have been seasons in my life where I genuinely wanted to change. So I did what most of us do. I tried harder. I got disciplined. I set a schedule. I made commitments. I set goals, and I created systems. I'm going to work out more. I'm going to eat less. I'm going to pray more. I'm going to read more. I'm going to do more. I'm going to be more patient, more present, more consistent. And for a while, it works. For a while, it works. And you start seeing progress. But eventually, many of us get to this place where it's like, okay, I can kind of coast now. And eventually, we all find ourselves drifting back to these habits and bad things that we don't want in our lives. And I realized something. We can never transform behavior without transforming the heart. We can never truly transform behavior without first transforming the heart. I mean, I can act differently for a while, right? Without actually being different. I can put on a good show. I can put on a good face. I can do the things that I need to do for a season without actually transforming who I am. But if I'm not transformed, it's only temporary and it's tedious because we're just putting on a mask. It's exhausting because you're constantly managing yourself. Am I putting on the right face? Do I have the right appearance? Am I making sure that other people don't know the things that I'm doing that I don't want them to know about? Constantly monitoring yourself, constantly trying to keep it together and staying disciplined. If I stop, I'll go right back. Because behavior modification can't produce heart transformation. It just can't. Constantly trying to work on it. It can restrain you, but it cannot renew you. And that's exactly where some of us are today. Maybe you were invited here and you're like, man, I'm struggling. I've been wrestling with these things that are just taking grip of my life. Maybe you attend here regularly and you're like, man, Matt, I'm working on some things that I don't know how to navigate it. This is where Paul comes in. Paul has a really cool story, and we've kind of talked about this each week, but I'll make it really brief. Paul was formerly a guy named Saul. He persecuted Christians. He hated Christians. He put them in jail. He sat and approved of their killing. Like, he was a vicious dude when it came to the Christian faith, but he had a transformation. And so we look to Paul because he experienced this kind of transformation. It says in Colossians chapter 3, verse 1, since then, you've been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. I want you to notice something that says you have been raised. That you have been raised. Paul, in the previous chapter, has talked about dying to self, dying with Christ to the elemental teachings of the world in chapter 2. If you missed last week, go back and read it. It's right at the end of the chapter, and he's like, man, you're died to these things. You no longer live in them. And so he's jumping right in here in chapter 3, saying, since then you've been raised with Christ. So you've died, you've been lowered, and now you've been raised with Christ. It says, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is. And he says, why are you still living according to the rules of the past? Do not taste, do not touch. They have this image of being like wise, right? I'm going to be more disciplined. I'm going to set my alarm. I'm going to set a schedule. And Paul kind of gets at the heart of what we talked about at the beginning, that this is just behavior modification, that it doesn't actually change who we are. Like I said, for some of you, you're like, man, this is why I'm here, Matt. Paul says, listen, you've been raised with Christ, so set your hearts on things above. It's why we talk about baptism. By the way, next week is Easter. The week after, we're doing baptisms. Man, we'd love for you to be a part of that. If you've been thinking about, like, I'm ready to take that step, we would love for you to sign up for our baptisms and be a part of that day. But when we talk about baptism, it's why we talk about it as a death. We're dying to our old life. We're putting on Christ, and we have a new life raised with him. You've been raised, notice right here, he says you have been raised. He doesn't say you will be raised. He doesn't say you might be raised if you try hard enough. He doesn't say, hey, I'm going to put you on a 3 to 6 month probation, and if you perform right, you will be raised. He says you have been raised. It's already true. And Paul is saying something radical right here. He's saying, when you place your faith in Jesus, your story just didn't get improved, it got replaced. Your story got replaced. You received a completely new life. The word Paul uses for raised is connected with this idea of being co-resurrected, raised with Jesus. In the ancient world, identity was deeply tied to location and association. So when Paul says you have been raised with Christ, he's not just talking about a future heavenly place. He's saying your identity is now located with him, which means your life is no longer defined by your past. It's defined by your union with Jesus. He continues in Colossians 3, he says, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things, for you died and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. Did you guys catch this? He says Christ is your life. Not Christ is a part of your life. Not, oh, hey, my name's Matt. I'm a lead pastor. I have a wife and a couple kids. No, my life is Christ. Christ is my life. That it consumes all of us. It's a part of every part of who we are. It's not a part, an addition. It's not helpful information in our lives. This is not a self-help book. This is a transformational thing that we take on Christ. Everything about our identity, our purpose, and our future. Paul continues in verses 5 through 10 talking about putting things to death. He says, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. Sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived, but now you must also rid yourselves of all things such as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. Do not lie to each other, since you've taken off your old self with its practices. Here's this idea again, where he's like, you've taken this off. You've put these things aside. This is no longer a part of who you are. And he's like, look, this stuff is killing you. It isn't good for you. And it isn't in alignment with your new identity. So get rid of it. You've taken off your old self. Don't pull it back out of the dumpster. Anybody identify with that? Like I was talking about diet and donuts. Donuts actually make me sick. I cannot eat them. But listen, there are times if I go to the right donut shop and they have like a bacon maple bar, or they have anything with almond in it, I'm just like, I'm a sucker. And I feel sometimes like, why am I even doing this? I'm going and I'm grabbing this, essentially, this junk that I know is going to make me sick. And I grab it and I eat it. And of course, I feel sick. And many of our lives, whether it's one of these things on this list or something else, there's these habits, these hang-ups, these addictions that we wrestle with, and we throw them away. And it's like, I want something different for my life. And then we find ourselves one day drifting over and we look in the dumpster and it's like, oh, it's still there, and we pull it out. We put it back on. And you might be saying, Matt, this is what I'm trying to do. How do I do it? How do I get rid of this junk? It's messing with my life. It's messing with my relationships. It's messing with my heart and my happiness. And I feel like I'm just dragging this weight around of what I don't want to be and who I don't want to be about. Paul has an answer. He says, therefore, as God's chosen people, you are chosen, by the way. Did you know that? You are chosen. All of us, all of creation is chosen to be God's people. He says, you have been chosen, holy and dearly loved. Clothe yourselves with compassion, with kindness, with humility, with gentleness and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. That right there is quite a bit, right? Compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, bear with each other. Man, if somebody has grieved you, forgive them. And don't just forgive them. Forgive them as the Lord has forgiven you. That's fun. And then he says, like, with all of these things, he says, over all of these virtues, put on love, which binds them together in perfect unity. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. We've been talking about this all throughout Colossians. Over and over again, he talks about thankfulness. That the core of this is that we have this thankful heart, that we rejoice, that we abide in Jesus, and out of that overflows this life of thankfulness. And right here he's saying, listen, above all of these virtues, above all of these things, the way that it's going to happen is you have to be transformed as a Christ bearer. That you take off these other things and that you put on, that you clothe yourselves with Christ. Now, this is powerful imagery. And you might or might not catch this, and there's certainly like a translation that happens from back when this was written until today that we don't just get. But when you wore a certain robe or you had a certain ring on your finger, it identified you. It identified you. It helped people know who you are and who you belong to and what you were about. Just by the way you looked, people could say, oh, man, that person is of like, they're in this group, they're in this special club. They belong to this family. They're a part of this religious group. They're a part of, whatever it might be, but it represented identity. It signaled to everyone else what you belong to. It told people who you were. This is why when we talk about the prodigal son, that the story, it's so incredible. Because it says when the dad saw the son from far away, that he ran to him. And we've talked about this before, that he ran to him, that he hugs him, and that he immediately says to the people, he says, hey, put the best robe on him. Put a ring around his finger. Put sandals on his feet. And listen, this wasn't something that was done just to make sure that he was cleaned up and that he had a fresh robe on. No, this was an identity that he had in Jesus. It let people know who he was. So when Paul says clothe yourselves, he's not saying pretend to be something you're not. He's saying you have been chosen. You are taking on a new identity. You are clothing yourselves with these new traits. And you're putting off the old self. He's saying, take off what will never set you free and put on who God has made you to be. Take off what will never set you free in life and put on who God has made you to be. And here's the deal. When we take off something that is old and we throw it away, it belongs in the trash and we don't go back to it. When we put on something new, it means it is our new identity. That we are to live in alignment with our new identity, and this identity is always better. It was better for the prodigal son. It was better for the church at Colossae, and it is better for us. It brings true freedom. And this is what we've been wrestling with. This idea of freedom. I want to be free. I want to experience freedom in my life, and it is offered to all as a gift. It takes that new identity and putting that on. Maybe you've come to a place where you're like, man, I'm sick of my old identity. I've been wearing this for way too long, and it stinks. It stinks and it's heavy, it's weighing me down. I need a new life in Christ. It's offered to us. Maybe for some of you, you threw it away a long time ago and you found yourself just drifting back to it. Kind of looked at it for a while, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Maybe you pull it out of the trash, throw it in the trash, pull it out of the trash, throw it in the trash. Paul in Colossians is saying, listen, you have a new identity in Christ. Take it off what's never going to set you free. And sometimes we get this idea of like, maybe you're exploring faith and you're like, man, I just wrestle with this because if I become a Christian, If I give my life to Jesus, like I'm not going to have any fun anymore. I'm not going to be able to enjoy my life. I'm not going to have freedom. Because suddenly there's this book, and I haven't read it all, but I know about this Bible thing, and I'm going to have to follow all these rules. And listen, we say this all the time, that following Jesus will make your life better. And it will make you better at life. Because these things that we look at and we're like, oh man, these are rules and they're not going to let me have fun anymore. No, these are actually things that unlock the chains around us, that we take them off of our shoulders, and it truly sets us free. And guys, listen, Jesus wants us to have life in him. He says, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. I want you to experience freedom. Man, stop going back to those old grave clothes. And fully entrust yourself. Fully clothe yourself. Fully find your identity and what will set you truly free. What will truly give you joy. What will truly keep you not looking around your shoulder and behind your back all the time. What will give you a hope and a future. What will give you a promise not only in the life to come, but in this life as well. And guys, can I just tell you, can you imagine what it would be like if we as a church started inviting people to that? I want you to know that freedom. I want you to take off that old identity. I want you to put on your new identity in Jesus. Where people aren't driven by guilt. Listen, we say this all the time. This is a place where it's okay to not be okay. But we care enough about you, and we have experienced enough freedom in our lives that we don't want you to stay that way. We don't want you to stay this way. That we believe that Jesus, God, that they are in union together on a rescue mission for humanity. That God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him would not perish, but have eternal life. Because God didn't send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world. What if that became what we were known as, New Vintage Church? That we are a new vintage, that we are a new identity, that we are people who understand that we've sinned and fallen short of the glory, and that we're saved by grace, and we're extending that grace to our city and the surrounding areas. Guys, I want to tell you, never is there a better time to invite somebody to church than next week. If you follow us on social media, we wrote a really simple invite. Hey, Easter's next week. Man, God has done some incredible things in my life, and if you'd be interested, I'd love it if you came with me. We're going to have an Easter brunch at 8 a.m. It's going to go all the way up into right, but it's free. It's free. We want to bless you. And we're going to have an incredible service. And if you have kids, we're going to have an Easter hunt after service. And I'd love it if you come with me. I'll save you a seat. It's that simple. Here's what I'm going to tell you. That Escondido, that North County, that this world has this same invitation. That if we want to know what it is to truly be free, that it's found in Jesus Christ. So as we get ready to close this series, I want to ask a couple of questions of you. Where are you living as though Christ is not enough? Where are you living as if Christ is not enough? You're trying to say Jesus plus this. Christ plus this. I want to serve God, but I also want to keep my one hand. Where are you living as though Christ is not enough? Or where are you still trying to earn, to prove, to perform, to maintain? And here's what the book of Colossians tells us. That it's done. That it's finished. It's Christ plus nothing. Jesus is everything. And we have that invitation to clothe ourselves with him. So what if today you stopped striving and you started abiding? You started abiding in him. You started letting Jesus take every part of you. that you find your fullness and your hope in him, that you find your identity in him. And listen, here's what he promises us. That if we take off the junk that never set us free, and that we put on who God has made us to be, I know it rhymes, it's super catchy, you'll remember it. But when we do that, that it's his identity that we're found in him. It's the best robe that we could ever wear. It's the best ring that we could ever have on our finger. It's the best sandals. I mean, you're Louis Vuitton putting them to shame, right? So put on that identity in Christ and be found in him. Listen, we're going to have a prayer team up here when we have our last song here in a minute. And if you're like, man, I've been running for so long and I've been wearing these chains around my neck and I'm just ready to get free of it, man, we'd love to pray with you. If you're saying, hey, listen, I'm ready to take that next step. I want to follow Jesus in the waters of baptism. Like I said, in 2 weeks, we're going to do baptisms right here. It is going to be an incredible Sunday. I'm going to ask that you pray. Because we've been praying. And each time that we do a baptism service, man, God just does more than what we could ever imagine. And celebrate with these people. Listen, this is the biggest party that we will have. As people give their lives to Jesus, that we get to celebrate. So if you're ready for a new identity, don't wait. Come up today. Start this new life. Take off the old and put on the new.